is the second part of Childhood Trauma Awareness Month, which will be running from now all the way until the end of April, as the month of April is Childhood Trauma Awareness Month. But today's topic is a little bit different. We will be talking about the warning signs of an emotionally abusive parent. This information comes from pt2.com. Listening discretion is advised. The first sign of an emotionally abusive parent, though there are many, is they were overly moody. If a parent's mood swings made you feel like you were always walking on eggshells and you were scared or nervous of what would happen when they were around you, that could be a sign that they were emotionally abusive. I know that for myself, whenever my mom was upset or sad, I was very scared to even interact with her. I wouldn't even talk to her or be around her. I would just go in my room and disappear and hope that the emotion that she was feeling or dealing with would go away at some point. The second sign is they were overly critical or negative towards you. If you still hear their negative comments in your mind and you can trace them back to your parent, or they say things to you daily, you know they are taking their negative feelings about themselves out on you, which can lead to self-esteem issues. My mom used to do this to me a lot. She wasn't aware of it, but some of the things that she would say, I can still hear in my mind repeatedly, and it makes me very sad that I can remember most of what she had said to me. Another sign is they were passive aggressive. When someone's passive aggressive, they don't really tell you what's bothering them. If you had a parent who was passive aggressive, pleasant on the surface but cold underneath, it's likely a sign of emotional abuse. If you heard my last podcast, you heard me say that my mom was very pleasant. Nobody would really believe that I was being abused because she was so nice and is so nice to the outside person. But if you really get to know her, she's not nice at all whatsoever. Another sign is they were overly anxious. If your parent was overly anxious and always asking you for help to help them take care of their needs or just take care of them in general. My mom definitely had me doing this when I was a teenager and even as an adult, more than what I would like to admit. Not even when she was sick, but sometimes financially, and it was very burdensome to the point that I lost connection with my father and my father's family because I was constantly having to ask them for help to help take care of me and my mom most of the time. I can really remember most of my childhood having to do that. Another sign is that they guilt you. They may say something like, I gave up so much to have you and you treat me like this. My mom definitely has done this before. She will say things like, your dad didn't even want you. I fought to have you. Your dad wasn't in the hospital, so why do you care about him? Why do you really need to have an father figure or your father in your life? It should just be me. I should be enough because I was the one who fought for you. And that is very damaging and was very damaging to hear. Another sign is they were overly involved in your life. If your parent was overly involved to the point of constantly looking through your journals, social media accounts, watching your emails, and constantly dropping in on your conversations, this is also a sign they may have been emotionally abusive. My mom constantly had my passwords and was constantly looking at my conversations on social media. Even though I was a preteen, I understand that most parents, like to make sure that our child is practicing safe internet etiquette. But it was getting to the point where my mom verbatim knew exactly what I was talking about and knew the subject matter, which was very scary and led me not to trust her. And even as an adult, sometimes she knows verbatim what is going on and will report back to me just to see if what I said was true or just to get under my skin, which is very scary and troubling. Another sign is that you blame yourself for others' bad behavior. When someone mistreats you, you blame yourself and not them. I definitely personally struggle with that. A lot of the times when people do bad things to me, I always try to figure out what I did to them to make them think it was okay to treat me that way, or made it okay for them to want to hurt me, which I know has nothing to do with me. It's more of a reflection of them, but I still struggle with that one in particular. Another sign is you exhibit self-destructive behaviors. So what that means is if you're demonstrating self-destructive behavior, it may have been because your parent was emotionally abusive. Self-destructive behaviors are like having an addiction, participating in risky sexual intercourse, self-harm, are another way of coping with handling big feelings. In the past, I have engaged in some of these, not all of them, but some of them, and it's really hard to unlearn not engaging in destructive behaviors because it's so soothing. And if you let it go on for a really long time, it becomes a coping mechanism. And then when you have to unlearn that, when you finally go to counseling, it's very challenging, but it can be done. And you can find so much satisfaction once you have unlearned it to be happy that you don't want to use those self-destructive behaviors to cope anymore. And I'm at that place right now where I don't want to use those self-destructive coping behaviors, but I do have moments where I think on them, but I don't act on them, and that makes me very happy. Another example is you still fear how your parents will react to most of your decisions. If you still fear how they will react to most of your life decisions, you may have had an emotionally abusive mother or father. You make decisions on your own, but with the thought and anxiety that your parents won't approve. I still struggle with this, and I'm an adult, which is why I now realize that most of what I went through was emotional abuse. Not saying all these signs are a sign that you've been emotionally abused by a parent, but these are just some of many warning signs. I still struggle with making decisions on my own and not worrying about what my mother or father will say, but mostly my mother. I would have people always tell me, "You're an adult, make a decision. What can she do? Why does it matter what she thinks?" And I never really thought about why I would get so worked up and say, "Oh, you don't understand. That's just who my mom is." But now that I've been placed in this this position, I now realize that I have to be okay with the fact that I need to make decisions and not be so consumed about what it looks like to a parent, because now I am on my own and I need to be able to make these sound decisions for myself, because nobody is going to live my life and nobody has my life. And if I constantly worry about what is said or done or what people think, I will never fully be happy or live my life to the fullest. So those are just some of the signs of an emotionally abusive parent. Like I said, this series is a multiple part series. This is one of many topics that we will discuss during Childhood Trauma Awareness Month. Like I said, this series will be running from now all the way until the end of April. We won't only be talking about emotionally abusive parents, but it will be a lot of different topics that can be very upsetting and triggering, which is why at the beginning of each of these episodes, I always say listening discretion is advised, because the last thing that I would like to do to anybody is to trigger them or remind them of anything painful in their past, present, or future. So again, I thank you so much for tuning in and listening to my podcast. As always, my podcast is available on here and on Anchor and on YouTube and Spotify. And if you follow me on YouTube, I have links to my social medias and how you can view my latest work. And if you just want to follow me outside of hearing my voice, I greatly appreciate that as well. Thank you so much, and I'll holla.